There was no homie that found more job opportunities than this kid, Caesar, who I knew growing up in the projects. Got into a gang, and a smart kid, but he would always got into trouble and in and out of being locked up. I'd find him a job in the private sector in one of our businesses, but he'd always gravitate back to vague criminality. So this one time he finished a 4-month stretch in a county jail, a probation violation. There he is sitting in front of me, and he says what gang members often say, "This time it'll be different." I go, So I pick up the phone. I call a friend of mine who runs a vending machine company. He says, "Tell Caesar he can start tomorrow." And 2 weeks later, there he is again, sitting in front of my desk. And I go, "Híjole, Madre Santa, here we go." But this time he pulls out of his pocket his very first paycheck, and he says, "Damn, gee, this paycheck makes me feel proper. I mean, my mom, she's proud of me, and my kids, they're not ashamed of me. And you know who I have to thank for this job." And I said, "Well, gosh, who?" And he looked at me strangely and he said, "Well, God, of course." "Oh, sure, no, that's right. That's right, that would be God, yeah." He said, "You thought I was going to say you." I said, "No, gosh, God's number one, yeah." He said, "You are so lucky we're not living in them Genesis days." And I'm sorry, them Genesis days? He goes, "Yeah, because God would have had struck down your ass already by now." He said. People always ask me about enemies working together, and it certainly is dicey, at least initially. And they always do the same thing. They think for a long ass time, and then they say, "Okay, I'll work with them, but I'm not going to talk to them." So I had this kid named Youngster. That was his gang name, a little tiny guy, and everybody called him Youngster. And I thought he was ready. So I bring him to Homeboy Silkscreen. So I'm introducing him to his coworkers, and I'm watching him as he shakes hands with every single one, even enemies. He looks them straight in the eye. And I think, wow, this is great. Until he gets to the last guy, a guy who seems to be wanting to avoid this encounter altogether, a kid everybody called Puppet. And when Puppet and Youngster are in each other's vicinity, they mumble something. They stare at their shoes. They don't shake hands. Well, I know they're enemies because I know what gangs they're from. But he just finished shaking hands with other enemies. This is a hatred that's really quite personal and deep, beyond which neither of them think they can really get past. Well, about 6 months later, Puppet goes to this store some distance from his home. And on the way home, he decides to take a shortcut, so he dodges into an alley. And because he's taken this detour suddenly, unexpectedly, he's surrounded by 10 members of a rival gang, 10 against 1, and they beat him badly. He falls to the ground. Somebody finds his body and takes him to White Memorial Hospital, where he's declared effectively brain dead. But in the first 24 hours while he was lying there beaten in the hospital, I was alone in my office, 8:30 at night, and the phone rings, and it's Youngster, Puppet's coworker from the Silkscreen. And he says, "Hey, that's messed up about what happened to Puppet." I said, "Yeah, it is." And then with a certain kind of eagerness even, he said, "Is there anything I could do? Can I give him my blood?" And we both fall silent under the weight of it, until finally he breaks the silence, choking back his tears, and he says with great deliberation, "He was not my enemy. He was my friend. We worked together." Now, can I say that always happens at Homeboy Industries? Yes. Any exceptions? Not a single one. I think Mother Teresa diagnosed the world's ills correctly when she suggested that the problem in the world is that we've forgotten that we belong to each other. How do we stand against forgetting that? How can we obliterate once and for all this illusion that we are separate? For there's an idea that's taken root in the world, and it's at the root of all that's wrong with it, and the idea would be this: that there just might be lives out there that matter less than other lives. How do we collectively stand against that idea? And I suspect if kinship was our goal, we would no longer be promoting justice, we'd be celebrating it. You know, folks will say no justice, no peace, but the truth is no kinship, no justice. No kinship, no peace, no matter how singularly focused you may well be. We belong to each other, and there are no exceptions to that.